Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah. Alhamdulillah, it's through the fadl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we are able to gather here in the blessed month of Ramadan and pray salah in the masjid, in a masjid in Addison, alhamdulillah. And we know that the masjid obviously brings a lot of barakah, and the building itself is a huge ni'mah, but we need to have a ruh in it as well. Just like the body, it's a body, but without the ruh, without the spirit, is nothing. And how we bring this ruh and this spirit in the masjid is through programs revolving around the Quran. So that's one of the main purposes that we have. Very simple program, inshallah, that we have for you on a daily basis in Ramadan from Asr to Maghrib, which for the first few minutes we'll spend some time talking and discussing some points that Imām Nawawi brings from a book called al-Tibyan fi Ādāb Ḥamalat al-Quran, which is a monumental work. And if you ever heard of Imām Nawawi, you probably heard of his Arba'een work or Riyadh al-Salihin and these other works that Imām Nawawi has written. And keep in mind, when he passed away, he was just 45 years of age. And he's known throughout the entire world by just 45 years of age. And he's a polymath, mashallah. He's an individual that has his own maqam. So this book, we won't be covering obviously from cover to cover, but some points here and there, inshallah. So the purpose of this book is the clarification on what an individual who carries himself as the bearer of the Quran, what type of qualities should this individual have. So before we get to the actual hadith that he mentions for today, I wanted to just kind of give a backdrop about, throughout Islamic history, Muslims' education, it started with the Quran. Their education, it started with the Quran. And this education consisted of the being able to recite the entire Quran from memory. That was like a prerequisite to everything. That we need to make sure that we have the entire Quran memorized by heart. And then later on it was changed to at least that they recite the Quran from beginning to end to a teacher. Nazra style. But Imām Nawawi, he wrote this book, not for just the individuals who are masters of the Quran, but also novices as well. And this work right here that inshallah we'll be covering, it's written to explain to the men and women that how best can we benefit from the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because we know that this month of Ramadan is known as Shahrul Quran, is the month of the Quran. So is it enough for me to just go ahead and just sit there and read the Quran for a few minutes every day and that's sufficient? Or what else do I need to do? How can I best benefit from these beautiful words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because the blessing of the Quran is that whoever recites it, there should be some change that takes place. It shouldn't be like, oh, I hear the Quran, I recite the Quran, oh, okay, I'm going to go back to doing whatever I used to do before Ramadan or after Ramadan, I'm just going to go back to my normal self. No, there should be some change. And it's well known within those individuals that are well versed with the Islamic disciplines that learning doesn't necessarily teach hikmah. Just you learning the theories within the book doesn't teach you wisdom. But the key to wisdom is adab, is the aspect of etiquettes, and how you treat things and how you treat individuals. That is the key to hikmah. Okay? And it's for that reason Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states in the Quran that those who read the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those who establish salah, and they spend secretly, publicly, for them, from that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given, then they will get a reward that is uncountable. It's imperishable. It's never going to end. That reward from the Quran, that reward from praying salah, that reward from spending publicly, privately, that reward is by Allah. It's something that you cannot put a number on. No. And there's a hadith that we probably all heard of, I'll ask the youngsters here, mashallah. I'll ask Ibrahim and Muawiyah first. So let's see if they can tell me what's the hadith that the Prophet ﷺ said, the best from amongst you are those that blank. Can you finish it? What is it? Yeah, mashallah. The best from amongst you, خَيْرُكُمْ مَنْ تَعَلَّمَ الْقُرْآنَ وَعَلَّمَ. I called on them because they were talking, so it's alright, they're our kids. Okay. The best amongst you are those that learn the Quran and they teach it. Step number 1 is to be able to learn the Quran, is to be able to learn how to recite it, learn the tajweed rules. Then and only then can you possibly teach it. You can't just say, alright, I'm just going to have a Quran class at my house or at the masjid, and you never yourself really studied the Quran. You never yourself really got ijazah from a teacher to how do I learn? How do I read this letter? How do I connect this word from this ayah to this ayah? How do I connect this end of this surah to the next surah? These are all rules that we need to learn to enable to recite the Quran properly. Because we want to be obviously from amongst the best of those individuals who know how to read the Quran, who learn the Quran, and then they are able to teach it as well. That's why there's a hadith, there is a narration who Abdul Hamid al-Hammani, he said, I asked Sufyan al-Thawri. It's a very strange question. I asked him, you would think the answer is obvious, but let's see. He said, I asked Sufyan al-Thawri about a man who engages in battle. He's just in jihad. Is that individual more beloved to you or the individual who recites the Quran? Is the individual who's in battle more beloved to you or the individual who recites Quran? Now you would think, obviously somebody who gives up his life, gives up his money, gives up all of his time, that's going to be the individual who's going to be more beloved. But he said, no. He said that the individual who recites the Quran, because the Prophet ﷺ said this hadith, خَيْرُكُمْ مَنْ تَعَلَّمَ الْقُرْآنَ وَعَلَّمَ. This individual is even better than that individual. This individual who recites the Quran and practices upon the Quran and teaches upon the Quran, that individual, there's no comparison. You want to talk about job descriptions? I remember, individual. We have like career days in colleges and universities or in high schools, and I teach the youth, at Masjid Huda for the past like 10-15 years. And I would ask them this question just to kind of see what they would say. I asked them, what would be your ideal career choice? Very rarely, maybe 1 out of like 20, 25 students would mention, I want to become a hafiz. I want to study the deen. That's on us, right, as parents. That's on us to instill this love of the Quran, instill this love of the deen, that they regard it as something that they can do not just for 1 year, 2 years, but forever. Forever. And the rewards are never ending. By Allah, the rewards of studying the Quran, the reading the Quran, they're never ending. And it's not just for those individuals that know how to recite it beautifully, the Arabs or the Qurra that have such a beautiful lahja to be able to recite the Quran. No, the reward is for everyone. The Prophet ﷺ said that the individual who recites Quran and he is a mahir, he is skillful in this, then they will be with the obedient, noble angels. And the individual who stutters and stammers while reciting the Quran, it's very difficult for them. Say alhamdulillah. They say stutter, or they don't have that flow. For those individuals, lahu ajran, they get 2 deed. They get 2 rewards. They get 2 rewards. So their reward is even more. Why? Because they're struggling through every ayah, every page, every surah. For the hafiz, for the individual that has that ability to recite the juz within 30-40 minutes, for that individual it takes to maybe recite 2 pages in 30-40 minutes. But guess what? The reward is more. The reward is more. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks at the struggle. How much struggle did you put in? And we'll end with this one last hadith. The Prophet ﷺ, he said that recite the Quran, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not chastise that heart that memorized the Quran. We talk about this month being the beautiful month of Rahmah. We talk about this month of it being the month where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will save individuals from Jahannam. One key factor for that is the Quran. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to benefit in regards to reading the Quran, in understanding the Quran, and to implement the Quran. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.